Had a little listen to his podcast, huh?
Dude, it's educational. And besides, I've been wanting to listen to this one.
Welcome to Idling in the Impala, a podcast by and for lovers of supernatural and the fanfiction it inspires. Before we begin, we just want to remind you to like, subscribe, follow, etc. wherever you listen to us, so you don't miss any episodes or bonus stuff that we do. I'm Karlee.
I'm Sandra, and you thought we were done with the opus that was Demonic Junkies after almost 3 hours, I think, is what the last episode clocked in on. But we're not, because
We're not done.
I had done a presentation about Demonic Junkies and Karlee's journey through the writing process, reactions from readers, all of that stuff. But the crux of the presentation kind of came out of a discussion we had, which I thought I was going to be able to put into the first Demonic Junkies conversation, but that was too damn long. So I'm actually going to pop it in probably right around here, where we're going to talk about my reaction to the story, particularly I think it was right after Regret Junkie. No, there's no beating. There's a little bit of beating just because
There's no beating. It's fine. Now I have you and this big stick. What a weird coincidence. Okay, lay it on me later. I know it was awful. I know.
It was very
not awful like it was a bad story, just awful like,
it was very true to their relationship and their overall dynamic and all of that. I really didn't.
You hate me a little.
No, I don't hate you a little bit. I just it's an interesting take on what would happen if such and such, and I think it's accurate, as much as I don't want to admit it about Dean. It keeps going into the back of my mind, and I'd emailed the one listener who's like, Dean's basically, to me, it's like, Dean's the villain in all of this, and I'm very much like,
oh, my baby.
I don't want to go there, because I don't want that to be something that sticks in my brain, because really at the end of the day, the worst case scenario I could say about both boys is that however way they've been abused in their life reflects on maybe how they treat others. And that, you're exploring that in this situation. And I'm sure people, explore it with soulless Sam and different things like that too. The one reason it really bothers me, Karlee, is because it's like the way you portrayed it is it's all full Dean. Like, it's Dean, even though it's Dean Demon, it's still coming from Dean. And I wrestle with that so much in terms of some of his actions towards Sam. Because I keep thinking about the season 10. And I know he basically was like, in I think the first episode in Black, he basically told whatever the hell the dude's name is, do whatever you want with him. Do whatever you want with Sam. He had Sam tied up or whatever. He's like, I don't care, and I feel like,
oh, it was Cole. His name was Cole.
I feel like it was Dean wanting somebody else to do the dirty work. Like even in that hunt scenario, like through the bunker, like I still felt like Dean really wasn't going to kill Sam. It was a cat mouse thing that he was enjoying. You know what I mean? And knowing that he put Sam in that position willingly for his own benefit really bothers me. That really bothers me, because at the end of the day,
Dean.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it makes me question. It's like an all or nothing thing. And then I know that I think I might have scared the listener, because I was like, I'm not a debater, but I want to hear your side of it. Like, I don't want to debate this, because I don't want to be the person that's like, well, no, you're wrong. Like, I want to listen to your point of view, but understand, you're not going to sway me.
You will not
It's
change my
kinda
mind.
It's kind of like my situation. So like with that, I'm kind of like, you know, was he willing to do a murder suicide the same way maybe John was with Sam? And I just feel like he wrestled with that so much. And it goes all the way back to season 2, you know, knowing what he had to do if there was no other alternative. And I just don't think he would have done it, you know? So it's like that kind of part. That's where I'm at with that. It's great though. It's a great story. You did such a great job
Oh,
with
thank you.
the descriptions. Not even really necessary. I mean, the smut was great, but I mean, like just the development of the characters and like what Dean did with, you know, taking care of Sam, like that became okay. I'm like, this is the Dean I know. It's full of regret, full of everything's my fault. Look at what I've done. I guess like I feel like he makes choices, but his choices that he makes, I don't think would put Sam, you know what I mean? Like just wouldn't put Sam there. But like then this demon thing is just like, you know, so it's just, yeah, I was not happy with him for most of it. And I'm glad that he's being treated the way that he is by Sam. I did like the pharmacy thing. Like I liked all of those things, like those parts of like, look at what he's doing for him now to make amends. And I'm just like, and I liked the double non-con I really liked because that showed Dean struggling against maybe like his baser instincts, but a demon taking charge. Kind of like how Michael was doing with Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my thoughts. So not really a flagellation, like nothing. Like I'm not hitting you with a stick. I'm just saying like internally in my mind, it's like, no, I don't I don't want to go there. I don't want to think that about him. I really don't. Like, I just don't want to think. I know he's messed up, but I think at the end of the day, there's redemption there. And there's not this initial, I'm just going to use Sam for my own purposes, for what I want scenario. I guess that's where I struggle too. So
yeah. See, the thing with this Dean is he's not quite as black and white. Hopefully I haven't portrayed him as like two-dimensional and really black and white. But he's, because a lot of the story has been told from Sam's point of view, you don't necessarily know how Dean is actually thinking. So in the first instance, the in control, that's 100% demon Dean. That's 100%. That's so it's like a demon is pure id. It's, you know, it's just pure want, desire, like childlike. And you know the whole thing about like drunk words, sober thoughts. I don't really buy into that so much, but I do think when you are removed of your inhibitions, you potentially do say or do things that maybe you might have thought about when you were sober. But I don't think it's that cut and dried. So if we go back to control, this is Dean. He's not possessed by a demon. He is a demon. He is 100% desire, need, id. What does he desire? His brother. Always. Even if you took out the sexual aspect of it. So Sam's here going, I'm going to cure you. Going to be fine. And Dean's having the time of his fucking life. He's happy as a demon. So what is he going to do? Well, Sam's not going to leave. Sam's already proved that. He tracked him down. You know, so he has to keep Sam with him in some way. And that's the only way he knows how to keep Sam with him. So it's not born from malicious intent. It's not like he deliberately was like, I'm going to fuck my brother and then leave him to die. You know, like metaphorically fuck, not necessarily literally fuck. But it's not that malicious. It's just, I need to keep him with me.
I guess it's the happiness part. I think that's what I struggle with, because I don't feel like when we saw him in the show, like there was this do whatever I want thing, but it didn't necessarily feel like happy. You know what I mean? Like he was kind of like doing his thing with Crowley, but how much happiness was he experiencing. So,
Ah,
do you know what I mean?
so then I do know what you mean, but on like coming at that from Junkie's angle,
Mhm.
we only really see it from Sam's point of view, and Dean tells you in Hate that a lot of it's an act. He doesn't want to be doing these things anymore. He's tired of doing them. And he has to keep up appearances for Sam. You can't let Sam know what's going on. So you don't, I can say to you confidently, Dean was having a good time in Control. Dean was having a good time in Shane. Blood, not so much. Hate, really not so much. You know?
Yeah.
A lot of it, you don't necessarily know. I don't necessarily know how much of it is Dean acting, how much of it is a cover-up. I had a not similar, but similar vein with Dreamer. She was like, I am gonna miss mouthy Demon Dean. And I'm like, you don't know if Dean is mouthy. You don't know. He might be. We don't know. I don't know. We'll find out. I do know what you mean though. It's not been nice. I haven't enjoyed it.
Go off on it from there. So my whole thing that I kept coming back and forth to Karlee with was like, I just don't understand him in this. I'm like, why is Dean able to do what he does to Sam? Karlee made a great point in the conversation that you just listened to, which was that, this is basically Dean's id. Just full out, because in my mind, we always have the thought that a demon possesses someone, and basically the person takes the back seat and demon just drives off and does
Demon's
whatever
gonna
they want.
demon.
Demon's gonna demon. And in this situation, we knew based off of canon that no, this was Dean. And I just had so many problems with it, because I always feel like Dean's main objective is to keep Sam safe. So I did some research on, Freud and conscious mind, unconscious mind, the ego,
which is
the id, and the superego, and how that all kind of works together, or supposed to work, dependent on, I guess, a normal situation.
yeah, it's probably worth dumping it at this point that a lot of Freud's theories on psychology have been disproved, and he was on all the drugs. Good Lord, so many drugs. So, take it with a pinch of salt.
Right.
We're not saying like, oh yes, Freud is, the be all and end all.
Yeah, no. But for me, like in this situation, like when you going off of that like idea of, why could Dean do this? Because that was the whole thing with me, was why.
I have a lot of messages to that effect, which is I hate him. I was genuinely, I was so proud of that. I told so many people, I was like, I have made Sandra hate a Dean character. I don't think this has ever happened before.
No, because it goes against everything that
everything you stand for.
No, well, not just what I feel Dean stands for, just in like, I understand the process, and I understand his inner turmoil and conflict, right? So when you mentioned it to me, I'm like, okay, so this kind of made a little bit more sense. So again, like, if you're following along, if you're watching the video version of this, it's the explanation. Demon Dean is the id for me.
You definitely should be watching the video, by the way. It's a fucking killer presentation.
So I basically took this information. The reference is from Simply Psychology, Freud's theory of personality, id, ego, and superego. Again, as Karlee stated, take it with a grain of salt, however you want. It's just a way for us to have a discussion about Demon Dean. So yeah, it is like the primitive part, instinct. So it's like the stuff that's below the surface normally. And in the picture of sort of like the iceberg, like it's totally down the bottom, unconscious mind stuff. So it consists of all the all the components that are present, it says at birth, including the sex, life instinct, eros, which contains the libido, and the aggressive death instinct, thanatos, I think
Eat,
is how you say it. So
feed.
yeah.
No, it's sleep, eat, mate. That's it.
So
that's all it wants.
Yeah. So I guess we could say like what, fuck, marry, kill. If you're gonna do that.
There's a Slipknot EP, and it's
Okay.
like, eat, sleep, mate, repeat, something like that. I'm sure
Okay.
that's the name of it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's all and I suppose linking this, I know we're talking about Dean, but linking this back
Mhm.
into Sam,
Mhm.
I call it his lizard brain, his self-conscious, but it probably could call it Sam's id. That is the one that is screaming danger, Will Robinson at him with everything to do with Dean. You know, you could put that there for sure.
Well, that's what I kind of wanted to talk about too. Like, so in this case with Sam and his demon blood addiction, like, is that how you'd explain his, like, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself. Is that how his id is coming out, or it isn't because he's still being dominated? So like, that's where I get all like confused and stuff like that. Like, what part of when is Sam just like switching into that mode of just like, if he is at all in this story? Because again, I don't know if that's necessarily a thing.
I don't think Sam is ever truly controlled by his id in this story. But I just, if we're talking about id as, you know, your instincts, the parts of you that are just pure base, I would say those are the parts of Sam that is, you know, that even though he wants to come back to Dean, those are the parts of him that refuse to move because they say danger and can't. But I don't think an addiction is addiction. And I mean, yeah, it probably does come from that part of your psyche that just, you know, the urge to consume. But I wouldn't say Demon Dean is the id in this story for sure. I don't think it comes to Sam.
Yeah. So then going into that, so then when Dean was turned into a demon, the id completely took over. For him.
This story would have been so much easier if I'd included the Mark of Cain, but I was like, I don't like it. This is a stupid story.
But it still ties into it. I mean, if you're just talking about Demon Dean, you know, that's, you know, all that kind of came from that point. Like, you don't have to discuss it, I think, to, you know, follow along, you know, with the storyline. Because I think that maybe like as Dean was dealing with the Mark of Cain in the story, I think that's where he probably like the id was starting to fight over trying to get some dominance, you know, in play, at least when it comes to like the kill part, right? Like that was just like, if he didn't feed that, you know, as Crowley stated, he was going to turn into it entirely. But still, like, he was it all over the place in Black and Reichenbach, you know. But again, like, he was being completely selfish, you know. No ounce of care in his body for anyone or anything. And I mean, like I said, this is the only way I can reconcile that this behavior is plausible from Dean. Like, there's no option or ability for Dean to rely on the ego. So then my thing is, you know, if we take it as a sort of like compare it to a regular demon situation, there's still a part of him is taking a backseat, right? Like, so it's not like his whole soul personality is like backseat to a demon. It's just part of his personality is kind of like switching the dominance of it. And in this place, it's the id and like the ego and the super ego, which again, like, I knew about id and I think ego. I don't think I'd like really understood even the super ego part at this point. I
studied this in college.
Okay, that's great.
But I don't
remember.
I don't remember what the super ego is. I remember what the id and the ego is, but I don't remember what the super ego is.
Yeah. So for like, then my question, you know, again was like, where the hell is Dean's ego? You know, so the ego is the only part of the conscious personality. So it's what the person's aware of when they think about themselves, and it is what they usually try to project towards others. So and again, like I've got it on the presentation, but like it finds a way to realistically satisfy the id's demands. So I mean, I guess you could think of like Dean, like, when he goes out, he has a few drinks, or he hooks up, that kind of stuff. Like the ego's like, okay, I'm going to give you this right now. That should tide you over. Like that's like the compromise, or postponing the satisfaction, so that you don't have to deal with what I guess people, like society, perceives of you as being like, like a drunk, a womanizer, all of those kinds of like, quote unquote things that, people could tag on to Dean when he's kind of like going down a rabbit hole of what he might want out of that. So it's the one saying, this is what you need to do, for you to be like, an acceptable part of society, even like Hunter Network society. Like this is like the basics, like, that you've got to deal with. And I'm sure over time, Dean, I mean, it's obvious Dean struggled with that, just even like on the show. I think for at least like in the beginning, I think maybe a little bit, and then got kind of like, I think you could say his alcohol dependency, to deal with what he was going through, probably shifted a lot depending on what he was dealing with. Again, context for the hellscape that is Supernatural in general for these two boys.
Everything is in context. The show,
Yeah.
which is bugfuck nuts.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, if you're gonna, again, like if we compare this to maybe Sam's journey, I think even though he was struggling with the impossibility of what he had to deal with, I feel like maybe his ego had a little bit more of a say, in what was going on, not necessarily in Demonic Junkies, but just like in general. Like, I think he operated on a different level than Dean did, mainly because I think he was given more input, access,
Parenting.
representation of, parenting, but also like getting out of the family dynamic and seeing this is what it's like outside of the Winchesters for those, years that he was in college before he came back into everything that was going on in season 1. So
I think as well, just kind of spitballing through canon, Sam probably derived quite a lot of satisfaction from denying his id, and drawing that distinction between sort of, I don't know, being a better person than his hunter father, his hunter brother, when he was at college, I mean. So he probably made a real effort not to be led by that part of himself and to deny it. Like, nobody doesn't like cheeseburgers, okay? Unless you are like vegetarian or vegan, or you have like, everybody likes red meat once in a while, I just feel like it's biological. It's a biological imperative. Everybody just likes red meat once in a while, but he endlessly denies himself. Everybody likes bacon, okay? You can abstain from pork products because of any reason you so choose, or no reason whatsoever. You could just be like, I don't like pigs, or I like pigs a lot. Everybody likes bacon, but he denied himself for whatever reason, whatever he thinks that achieves for him. He denies.
No, I think that's a really good representation of Sam. It's the denial that makes him feel stronger. And especially I think when I always go back to that one, I think it's in is it season 8 when he's doing the trials, or they're looking for, when they're in that hotel and they find Metatron, and he talks about the Knights of the Round Table and reading that. Like, I feel like that's his way of saying that he's trying to rise above it, even though he just feels like he can't. Like, there's always something there. So it's like, if he keeps pushing it down, then
It will, yeah.
it's gonna
If he keeps-
elevate him to a
Yeah.
higher status. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's so many biblical implications of penance and oh god, I just read a fic based around that actually. That was pretty good. But oh god, I hate that scene so much. It's genuinely like Jared is looking into my soul and going, here are all the things that you can't say but you believe. Oh, I could never go on a quest like that because I wasn't clean, I wasn't pure. Yeah. He's had such a rough life and I'm just making it so much worse.
Oh goodness. So there's more information.
I've lost
about
where we were.
No, there's just more. I just switched to the next. It's still on like Dean's ego and stuff. So just where like the id, the ego seeks pleasure, sort of like tension reduction, and avoids pain. But unlike the id, the ego is concerned with devising a realistic strategy to obtain pleasure. So like the ego can be sort of like taken over by the id, right? And that's I think where we're at with Demon Dean.
Yeah.
And then one thing that I read in the article, that according to Freudians, some abnormal upbringing, particularly if there is a cold, rejecting, I don't know, schizogenic, it's in quotes, mother, can result in a weak and fragile ego whose ability to contain the id's desires is limited. This can lead to the ego being broken apart by its attempt to contain the id, leaving the id in overall control of the psyche. So my thoughts were, that
now I think Freud was really obsessed with moms for whatever fucking reason. But I mean, if there's cold and rejecting schizogenic parents, well, fucking paste a picture of John Winchester right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was thinking like, Dean's ego was already so very broken. I took this back too, for like from his time in hell, that like, that was already sort of like chipping away, that the id was also able to take over maybe so easily or quickly. Because, and I just watched this episode in season 3 not too long ago, and it was actually after I'd wrote all this down, but Dean's talk with Ruby 1.0 in season 3. Again, I hate that some of the really great or important like meta, or the myth arc scenes are in some of like the most terrible episodes in my mind, like the witch episode, which Malleus Maleficarum or something like that. He has this discussion with Ruby at the end of that. The demons were once human, and it took centuries to rid every bit of humanity from them. So to me, it's like, well, the mark of Cain was probably just like a super fast shortcut. But then I came up like with this issue. Well, Cain seemed to have gained some morality back by choice over time, and he had the mark of Cain. Again, we're talking hundreds of years, like centuries. He went dark, off the rails at the loss of his love. And I feel like Demon Dean in canon made the choice to leave Sam, perhaps because he knew he couldn't control the id. And then I also put in Dean's ego could have also been corrupted, broken by John's parenting upbringing. Perhaps his superego unconsciously ran the show like a majority of the time. Try to like maybe like compensate for all of that stuff too. But yeah, the parenting thing really kind of, as soon as I read that, I immediately thought John, that way.
And I mean, I suppose we're putting like our sort of civilized deliberately doesn't look at America, our civilized societal thoughts on these parts of the personality. But all the id is really is survival. You need to eat, and you need to reproduce, and you need to sleep. And that's it. And those survival instincts, those animal instincts, they're not thinking about anything, like how those acts are gonna, the tiger that eats the freaking gazelle or whatever is not thinking about what gazelle society is gonna say about it eating. It's hungry, so it eats. It's tired, it sleeps. The biological drive to reproduce is inherent in every living being. That's
Mhm.
pretty much all we're designed to do. Anything else on top of that is, that's just bonuses,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think Dean probably lives more in his id than any other part of his personality, but I don't necessarily think it's a choice. I think it's a survival instinct in him.
Yeah.
Things are inherently untrustworthy, and he has to, if this is going to be his last day on Earth, well, by God, he's going to have a good meal and a good fuck. And that's, there's no way to live, but that's kind of how I interpret it.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Dean. It's going to be the tagline of the show. Poor Dean. Super ego.
Yeah, then we talk a little bit about super ego. Like maybe it's Dean's super ego that's been banished. Super ego incorporates the values and morals of society, which are learned from one's parents and others. Again, based on Freud, like develops around the age of 3 to 5.
This is where Freud loses me with the psychosexual development. I have boys. I can tell you that's not particularly realistic.
Yeah, but basically, it's they're the one that's in charge, and you're not here. You're not here to enjoy yourselves. Here comes the anxiety and the guilt.
You ruined a perfectly good monkey. Look at it; it's got anxiety. That's people. Yeah. Look, I made humans. You ruined a monkey. Is what you did. No, I think that's an interesting facet of Dean's development, though, because he would have learned societally accepted values and morals from Mary, but then it would have all been in this so-called pivotal age, 3 to 5. It was all destroyed.
It would just be anxiety and guilt. Like that's all it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I think like maybe, at least like growing up, I think a lot of it was probably like his operating mode was like super ego. When he was younger, just like, and and in terms of what he had to do, I'm sure the anxiety that, he had to shoulder to take care of Sam when John wasn't around and different things like that. And I feel like in Demonic Junkies, like the super ego is just like all over Dean, like in the last half, when we get into once he's cured himself, then it's all about anxiety about Sam, making sure Sam's okay, and the guilt that he feels about what he's done, to Sam throughout the first half of it.
So much guilt. Yeah.
So
it's just an unhealthy boy all the way around. But that's the only real way that you can reconcile the Dean that you know and see with the Dean that I made.
Yeah.
Which is to just go, oh Lord, no, you fucked it completely. Oh God, no, it's ruined.
Yeah.
You've broken it, like not even a little bit, like you completely fucked it.
Yeah.
Why have you done this? Yeah.
And I think this is kind of where I sort of like, again, like I understand the thought process too for, it's not a big stretch, to have fanfic that, talks about Wincest in certain situations, because there's, again, and I'm just going based off like this one article, which of course we can, have people that disagree with stuff, but it's called like, there's the super ego, which has 2 parts to it, the conscience and the ideal self. And there's one term called the ego ideal that Freud talks about, which arises out of the person's first great love attachment, usually a parent. But my question is,
he was obsessed.
Is Dean's first great love attachment Sam and not necessarily, Mary or John? He never really had enough time to make a true love attachment with Mary. And I'd argue that John was more of a drill sergeant. Once Mary died, too detached for Dean to do anything more than try to keep him placated for Sam's well-being. So I think that's how we get into the canon part describing them as soulmates in chapter 5. And again, like soulmates can mean a variety of things. It doesn't have to mean it's a sexual romantic relationship. But, I think because the boys are so very tied to each other that that's kind of where I was like, okay, well, this is kind of how the superego and the id can kind of like, you know, take turns dominating in different ways, right? Like if his love attachment is Sam, say superego side, and then you got id talking about all of the instincts and the urges, then I think that's how we come up with Demon Dean in Demonic Junkies. I've been listening to so many podcasts and doing like so many like side note, like as my narration, you know, projects and things are kind of like taking off. I'm getting a lot of like self-help and relationship and all these kinds of different terms being thrown at me, and they make me think about you know, my life, my relationships. But then as one does, you start to think about supernatural and Sam and Dean. And I was just kind of like, a big word is now enmeshment. And
Yeah.
I think that maybe a better term instead of codependent is that they are just like a product or a part of an enmeshed family system. Which started, you know, with John, but, you know, has this characterization of weak boundaries, right? Like, so one person overlaps the other, and you can't really see a true distinction, you know, where one person stops and where another person begins. And there's no like emotional separation. And you're being told that, you know, you need to support or you need to give this family member all of your attention, and that really stops someone from developing a sense of self. I think that's Dean all over, like, and then I think that's leads into all of the things that he, which we've talked about, did for Sam, and how it, you know, it kind of like doesn't always seem, it's like two sides of the same coin. People have talked about a lot too, like it's balanced, but it's not like healthy balance. Like it can be like divided down the line sometimes with their relationship. So again, like if you're following along, and I'll have the presentation in as a link too, if you're just listening and you want to look at my craziness, but like
you definitely should. It's great.
I talked about like different characteristics or signs of enmeshment. Again, lack of boundaries, lack of privacy, emotional fusion. You do what your parent family wants rather than what you want. Your parent family makes decisions for you. Effects: lack of identity and sense of self, inability to act or think for self, people pleasing, fear of conflict. Dean. It's just Dean all over the place.
So I'm thinking, there's a stereotype that as a mother of boys, I fucking hate that boy mum stereotype. You know, he's my world, he's my first love. There's this boy that stole my heart. He calls me mum. Gross, fucking vile, hate it, right? But I follow like just no mother-in-law on Reddit, and like parents of children of narcissists and insane parents and stuff like that, because my family was bug fuck nuts, and sometimes you think I might have, you know, maybe I invented this, maybe it wasn't that bad, and then you go and you see other people who have the same problems with their family that you have, and you're like, holy shit, it wasn't me. But that happens, and I don't mean to stereotype, I don't mean to generalize. Not every parent behaves this way, and not every parent of boys behaves this way, but it do tend to be the boy mums, and they lose themselves in being a mum to this boy. And then you see this child grow up, and they can't let go. They can't, you know, every partner that comes into this child's life is in direct competition, and they do things that you would think no rational, reasonable human being would ever do. You know, they'll like dress up like their daughter-in-laws and like, you know, behave really inappropriately towards their sons. And I think, not to say that happens in canon, obviously, but I kind of like, I feel like Dean kind of got caught up in that. Like
Mhm.
it was put on him that his whole being was to look after Sam, be
Mhm.
Sam's parent, and that translates to these parent figures that let being a parent embody them totally, and they have nothing
Mhm.
outside of that.
Mhm.
So yeah, just
Yeah, I
just
think
I can see where you're at with that.
yeah, I think I think the more that I'm like trying to learn, about myself, why I do what I do, and then why others do what they do. I think I always try to come from a place where now I'm realizing most people are just they're doing it out of either not knowing or understanding. And usually it's out of like either fear, right? Like this basic survival, fear, worry, or self-doubt. And I think that whatever whatever John was going through, I think that, and you could say for whatever reason, why, why did Dean take that on? Was it just because he was the oldest? Like if Sam had been the oldest, would Sam have necessarily done the same thing? You know what I mean? Like if the roles were reversed age-wise, would Sam have done that based off of like Sam's personality? Like whatever inherently is in Sam, like, or would there be would there have been a little bit of a difference in how the situation, played out? Because I do think that everybody's got their own particular set of great
That's
little neuroses that, it's part of its nature, part of its nurture. And then you get this
yeah,
mix, and
that's
then
just what I was about
comes
to
out.
say.
Yeah.
It's nature versus nurture. You put 2 children in the same position, and would you get
Yeah.
the same outcome? I think you probably would get a similar outcome. Just based on I don't know, I don't feel like Sam would have done any better. Not to say, that is not to say that Dean did a bad job by any means, but
No, with everything that was put on, a kid at that age, like how much of an ability to recognize that this is not healthy,
yeah.
this is not the way you
And
do things.
You don't, do you? When you're a kid, you assume what's happening to you is happening to everyone else. And it's only when you get older and you sort of get into your teens and you start talking to your peers and comparing notes, and you're like, oh shit, that wasn't what do you mean your mum didn't do X, Y, and Z? Well, how did you do, A, B, C? Kind of thing. And that, you don't. I mean, I don't doubt for a second that the Winchesters knew that their lives weren't normal. But probably by that point, it was too late, because plenty of kids, like army kids or military kids, they move around a lot, don't they, as their parents get deployed and things. So being the new kid in school probably wasn't that uncommon.
And I almost feel like too, like there's a section on here that's like, how to heal from enmeshment. I feel like sort of like Dean was that buffer between John and Sam, I think, which gave Sam the opportunity to recognize this isn't right. Gave him the courage to set boundaries, right? Whether Dean really wanted that to happen or not. Like Dean was that sort of like the dam, right? That kind of like gives a little bit of like a valve, like flow adjustment, right? Like to what's happening and what's actually like getting through to Sam in one way or another. And giving Sam the opportunity to discover himself, explore this, and do things that Dean would have never done, or at least probably didn't realize it until much later. And I always find that interesting too, about how people come to that realization. And I think that's why for me, Dean is my character, because I feel like Dean just did not get it for such a long time. And whether it was a light switch or something, or this slow realization. I mean, I know, Karlee, you always talk about, I just don't understand why Dean keeps harping on about his mom and his, like he's still like, that's like for some people, that stuff is so ingrained in your psyche. It just does not let go for a really long time. And I think that's where Dean was at for decades. I think. And everybody's got their own way of hopefully eventually coming to the realization of what's good for me. What do I have to do for me? Some people never experience that moment. I wanted that for Dean. And I feel like maybe he might have been close to getting that towards the end of the run of the show. Maybe. But that's, you can't untangle yourself from that. Like, and you're talking about untangling wool. Like, for some people, it's very hard. It's very hard to find the out, or find that where that knot is that's not letting you get out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I am estranged from pretty much all my family now because I'm such an asshole, guys. I'm such an asshole. Nobody wants anything to do with me. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I won't lie down and take their shit. I'm a dickhead. But yeah, no, I saw that. I saw my family, not all of my family, but enough of my family, and especially my grandparents, treat my mum, who, if you're a new listener, my mum is deceased now, treat her like absolute garbage. And she just kept going back for more and more and more, and kept trying to prove herself and prove her worth. And at the time, I was like, why are you like this? Why are you doing this? And I can't say get it now, because I don't think I've ever, wanted somebody's approval that much. But I mean, maybe I have. I don't know. But she couldn't stop seeking that for whatever reason, whatever it was in her head. She couldn't find a way to stop seeking that approval. And I think she knew that it was never going to come. Whatever she did, it was never going to be enough. It was never going to be right. It was never going to be as good as X or Y. But she couldn't stop. Right up until the end, she couldn't stop. So, I get it. And then I came along and challenged all this bullshit and was like, nope. I'm such an asshole, guys. Such an asshole. But again, that's nature versus nurture. My mum had no one in her corner when she was growing up. Nobody said to her, this doesn't have to be like this. Whereas, albeit my mum didn't say that to me. She wasn't like, it doesn't have to be like this. You don't have to bow down to the family.
Right? Like, you saw that. You could see it from an external point of view. You could see what was happening, and you were able to recognize that as being, that's not right. So you had that external outside looking. It's still being a part of it, being outside looking in. And I think that's kind of like, where I was at too, but it took me so much longer to get over that. For me, fear of conflict is a huge thing. It's like, you want to make sure everybody's doing fine. You want to make sure nobody's feeling that they're not loved, that they're not wanted, that they're not a part of, the family, the loyalty. I think so. For me, it's like, I think I get that. I understand that, like, from Dean, full stop. There's a loyalty that's expected, especially if it's in a very nuclear, just, that John, Dean, Sam, you don't break out of that. What was that? I just read a story by Edge of Clairvoyance, Sweet 16. It was about Dean, young Dean, John, and there was one part of it that just kind of like, it made my heart hurt for Dean, where he would not go and ask Bobby for help because John had a argument with Bobby. It was basically like, we can handle it ourselves. We don't need anyone's help. And he held on to that and made decisions based off of that weren't good for him, but were good for the family. So there's that part of him that I just want to hug all the time and say, I understand. You did the best that you could in the situation, but you got to learn to love yourself a little bit more and not just the family kind of thing. And then I kind of like I found this one table or whatever, and I kind of felt like, Sam is on the end of striving for healthy boundaries and Dean is just on the enmeshment side, like most of the time. Again, like if we're talking about two sides of the same coin, right? Like, and again, a lot of this I think is only possible for Sam because of what he saw with Dean growing up. Where enmeshment's parentification, on the other side of that is self-care. Dean, I only exist to care for other people. Sam, I receive care from other people and care for myself. Criticism, you're never good enough. Self-worth, I am good enough. I like who I am. And again, I think Sam was striving for that in the way he was behaving. I don't think Sam ever got to that point either, but he was on the scale of that more than
he was trying.
Yeah, he was trying.
Yeah.
Dean was just like, this is just where I'm at. Possessiveness, which I think falls right into demonic junkies. Like you must base your decisions on what makes me feel good. And then we've got autonomy on Sam's side. Again, not necessarily during demonic junkies, but like if we just talk about it in general. And then helplessness for Dean, advocacy. Like Sam's going to ask for what he needs. Dean, time and time again, and how much did it piss you off? Sam can't take care of himself. Sam doesn't know what to do. Like helplessness. Like I need to be the one to do this because you can't do it.
Yeah. Season 5. You can't do this, Sam. You won't be able to. Nope, you can't do this. You're not strong enough. You're too this. You're too that. You're too the other. Like, okay, hang on, guys, calm down. Like, let's evaluate this logically for like 4 seconds, please.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But how can you use logic, in a situation where, you can't see yourself outside of it, So I think for Dean, he was just, again, so in this situation.
I think season 5 sticks out because people are so blatant about it.
Yeah.
Like normally, like if you think of the early seasons and John whispering to Dean, oh, you might have to off your brother and stuff like that. And then season 5 came along and he was like, I really wanted to say that. I'm like, he's right there, guys. They're like, oh no, Sam definitely can't do this and he's not strong enough and it's gonna fuck up and we can't let Sam do it. And I'm like, he's fucking standing right there, guys. He's in the room. You're being so rude.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of that, but again, like such great, I don't know, like the exploration of it over the years, I think is what makes Supernatural such a stickler of a show for me, like in terms of like, I think we're going to talk about this in another episode that we do, but like in a weird way, how comforting it is, to be able to see yourself in other characters and realize that you're not the only one. Because for some people, they don't always get that even from their peers. They don't get to see that. They don't make that connection. I think sometimes it's about really seeing something so detached from you, so surreal, so out there, that you kind of like get a chance to focus on it through some form of entertainment. And so congratulations, because the story that you wrote kind of just I think showed so many
things,
did a lot of thinking for me, just in terms of like how, especially like how Sam like was again like on his own, how he is with Dean, and just Dean's constant state of being, like like there's like like there's almost like you get to see how Sam maneuvered life without Dean. You don't really see that, like with the start of the episode, the start of the show, you don't see that. You just see Dean needing Sam for this, and that's pretty much it. So I think that's the end of my presentation. That was the end of it. But so I mean, I don't know, are there any do you have any final thoughts?
I'm still in awe that I managed, because I never set out to like tell a story with a metaphor. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just like, oh, I wonder what would happen if this, but I was as it grew, and especially when I gave Dean a voice and he abused it completely, and then I had a big tantrum and I was like, you don't get a voice again. But he did, because he's, oh god, it's like pulling teeth. It's like teeth. But it was just, I'm just in awe that I managed to make this world, this character, and characterize him in such a way that I didn't feel was that different from canon, but made you feel so different than how you feel about the character in canon. Because I mean, I think we can argue that Demon Dean, Mark of Cain Dean, was an asshole, he was not good people, but you were still like, I love him, I can fix him, But I came along and I was like,
this one felt
what,
like there was no
but what if he
saving.
fucked his brother though?
Yeah.
But what if, what if I just change this one thing, and then it's, it's extrapolated to this huge thing, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's wild to me. It's wild to me, because I don't, like I said, I don't set out to do anything like that. I just I just let them tell whatever story they're gonna tell, and that's that's how it shakes out. So,
well, as a scribe, you did a great job helping to tell their story. I
will say, I wish I'd never fucking started it, because now I have to fix it. And now I'm like, oh, bloody hell. And they're arguing currently, which is this is not what I want.
Yeah.
That's what's happened. I thought I was detangled, and I'm more tangled than I was when we started.
Well, that's, like I said, whenever
that's on brand.
Yeah. But whenever you get to that, I think, conclusion of the story, we'll probably revisit. I don't think it'll be 3 hours, but I think it'll be like this is where it's concluded, and your thoughts, and then probably like readers' thoughts on the story and how it's gotten to the end, and what you've done, to fix it. So I know I'm looking forward to that.
subtle implication. You will fix this. By God, you will fix this.
Yeah.
Person, human. Yeah. Otherwise, we riot. We ride at dawn. Fix this. No, I'm interested. I'm interested to see where the story goes as much as anybody who is reading it, because I still don't know. I wanted to write a one shot, and I didn't sign up for any of this. It's just fucking happened. Nobody asked me. They were just like, oh, well, this is what we're gonna do. Yeah. So I'm interested to see where it ends up, and I'm interested to see if my Dean comes back in line with
sort of like what my interpretation of him. I mean, I feel like he's already just at the end of the final part of it. It already, I mean, I could already see him back, you know what I mean? So I mean, I could see that. It's just how does he fix it? How does he fix it with Sam? Like that's the part that, really, like I said, is the sticking point, but I mean, I already saw him back really towards the end. I could see him. Yeah. Good. Yeah. So that's the care that he has for Sam, even though he's so guilty about it. You could see all of that in there. So that was, yeah. I didn't have that part. You've got that part.
That part's okay.
Yeah. It's just fixing the relationship with
Yeah. I don't know.
We'll see.
I don't know. It'll come.
Yeah.
It'll come, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's it. No, this has been really interesting, because you were just like, I hate it so much. And I was like going, I don't think it's that different from Cat. But it does make more sense now.
Okay.
So that's
good. Well, thank you for letting me rant about how I figured out how to deal with your your Demon Dean in Demonic Junkies.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me rant for 3 hours last time about the story and how it happened. And I'm gonna speak to my husband and be like, when I die, I want you to put it on my plaque, on my tombstone, whatever. I just wanted to write some porn. I don't know where all this plot came from. You know, like, just as a joke, you know, like those I told you I was sick kind of things. I want that. I just wanted to, I might put that in my Twitter bio. I just wanted to write some porn. I don't know where all this plot came from. But yeah, so you, listener, thank you very much for tuning in. We know this has been a pretty long one, but in my defense, and in Sandra's defense, Junkies is a pretty long series, so you can't knock it out in 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, let us know your thoughts. If you've read Demonic Junkies, if you know we've talked about anything in the past couple episodes that have, you know, maybe like gotten you in the feels, or you related to, or you sympathize, empathize, all of those things. Let us know. We really like to hear from the people that are listening. But for
leave us
now,
a comment.
yeah,
Email us. Go tell them why they can do those things.
So if you want to reach out to us, you can email us at idlingintheimpala@gmail.com, or reach out to us on Twitter at idlingintheletterd_impala. If you'd like to make your voice a mail, check the description for a link to send us a voice message. You can find links to our personal socials and our AO3 accounts in the description. And there's also a link to my author website and my original fiction.
We also have a website now. Woo, website hype. It is idlingintheimpala.com, and that is where you can find all our merch. That is where all our merch lives from now on. So we got new t-shirts and mugs and all kinds of good stuff. Get over there, take a look, treat yourself. And there is also like YouTube stuff, Spotify stuff, behind the scenes stuff, all that good stuff. So go check it out, leave us some feedback, let us know what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, leave us a comment, especially if you are listening and watching on YouTube. Likes and comments really help with the YouTube algorithm. All hail its benevolence. Also, in the description, you will find the current causes that we are championing. If you want to take a look at them, if you can, if you think you are able, if you want to check them out, maybe give a little donation, that would be awesome. And with that, we will say thank you for joining us in the backseat, and we will see you next time, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.